Good morning. Excuse me. Good morning and welcome to Unusual Activity powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us this morning. As always, lots happening around the globe, impacting markets as we speak. We have S&P futures higher by 15.25 handles at 2035.25, just ticked up again. A continuation of the positive momentum from yesterday. We have West Texas Intermediate crude higher by 30 cents this morning at 48.94. We'll get into the technicals in a bit. The 10-year at 1.997, still under that 2% mark, again 1.997, and as we have been discussing yesterday, the 30-year at 2.563, maintaining that low yield, strong bid in the 30-year, and the dollar continuing strength, higher by 0.43 at 92.320. We'll get into the multi-year technicals in a few minutes. And the euro continuing its decline of 1.1794. So let's get into yesterday's activity a bit. We had early morning strength, slight profit taking in the late morning, and then really continued strength towards the close of the trading day. S&P 500 finished higher by 1.16% at 2025.90, breaking that multi-day negative streak. Dow Jones Industrial Average higher by 1.23% at 17,584.52. NASDAQ higher by 1.26% at 4650.47. As we head into this morning, major news that's really impacting, at least news from a geopolitical perspective, certainly the French terror attacks. They're in high alert. World is watching that. At the same time, the CAC 40 in Paris really not swayed to the negative side with the French terror attacks. Also on the minds of traders, investors, institutionals is the notion of being so far away from the 2.0% inflation target globally, and this reality of, or the concern of deflation setting in specifically in Europe, and that is a real danger to the European economies. ECB, as you know, will be meeting on January 22nd. As we lead up to the meeting, certainly analyst opinions and commentary from ECB officials about what may happen during the meeting. Also, watching very closely the oil drop. Certainly we have a little bit of a rebound this morning, currently at 49.06, $49.06. Currently just ticked up a little bit more. But again, what does this affect on larger countries, OPEC, non-OPEC countries, and of course, what is the effect of lower oil on the revenue stream for the oil companies themselves? Certainly leads to a lower revenue stream, leads to lower CapEx, capital expenditures in individual companies. And as we mentioned yesterday, it is from the oil industry specifically, they are responsible for 40% of all capital expenditures in the market. So that is rather serious, and that's as we've been saying for days and weeks, the lower oil will have an impact not just in consumer prices. Certainly it's a boon for the consumer, but at some point it will be a detriment to individual countries if it hasn't been already, and individual companies if it hasn't been already. Some of the other conversations going around globally, certainly we've seen the decline in the euro, extraordinary strength in the U.S. dollar. Will there be parity? and that's something that analysts are watching rather closely. Continuing with the oil weakness, we mentioned the deflation risk, specifically in the European Union economies. Additionally, we are monitoring very closely the notion of the Grexit, the Greek exit from the euro. Will there be a contagion? What will Germany's stance be on Greek debt, and will other countries' debt be dealt similarly? So that's something that we are watching rather closely, and as we monitor this, we'll report on this. Certainly Russia, OPEC, watching their actions. Certainly the French news have overshadowed other news as of late, but we are keeping very close eye on Russian actions with respect to oil and the ruble. We had this morning initial jobless claims in the U.S. for January 3rd at 294,000 versus a 290,000 expected. Prior was 298,000, so a little bit more than expected. On the continuing claims, we have 2.452 million. Expected was 2.360 million. Previous was 2.353. In November, for the November 2000 for Canadian New Housing Price Index was 0.1. Expected was 0.1. That's on a month-over-month basis. Also this morning, we're anticipating the Bloomberg Consumer Comfort Index at 945. 10:30, the EIA natural gas inventories. We know that also natural gas has been under pressure as of late, and certainly these inventory numbers tend to have an effect on even the perception of prices into the future. At 1:30, we have the Federal Bank of Boston President Rosengren speaking. 3 o'clock, we have consumer credit. 4:30, we have the money supply and the Fed balance sheet. And again, as we report every day, the Baltic Dry Index down again by 2.7% to 724. We've seen a consistent decline in the Baltic Dry Index on a daily basis, and that's something that we're watching. This we have up on the themes of 2015. It's consistent with respect to what kind of conversations are being had around desks. Certainly FOMC decisions. There's even some notion that can the Fed wait to raise rates if inflation does not increase, and how they perceive inflation. Remember, 2% is the target. We are well below that globally. We are well below that. Also, the global central bank actions, of course. So continuing, let's take a look at overnight markets this morning in Asia. We have the Nikkei higher by 1.67%, Hang Seng higher by 0.65%, and the Shanghai lower by 2.39%. Let's take a look at Europe. Strong across the board. We have the FTSE higher by 1.67%. The CAC in Paris by 2.27% higher. DAX higher by 1.61%, and the IBEX in Spain higher by 1.35%. We'd like to let's bring in Milt to discuss the technical, what he's seeing on the technical side. We had a pretty significant rebound yesterday. Certainly not tremendous, but again, showing a little bit of a resilience in the markets. Milt, what is your thought on going into today? Certainly futures being higher by 16. Can we continue this? I know we're certainly watching the support and resistance level. Can the market grow some legs here, at least in the short term?
Well, in the short term, anything can happen. It's all on the momentum, and momentum right now is to the upside. You had Fed's Evans last night came out with a golden arrow and said, they may possibly do 2016 rate hikes now. So that shot the market up overnight, the overnight session. you're getting a pop in Europe, you're getting a pop, in overseas. So that's just a continuation to the U.S. markets. We'll see the action today. We'll see what happens, later this afternoon. As of now, the futures are up about 16 handles on the ES. The 10-year is up right above, right in the 10-year yield is right by that 2%er. Tomorrow is the big day. Tomorrow is, non-farm payrolls. We'll see what happens on that side. We'll see if the continuation builds. We had a strong number last month. We'll see if the number continues. We'll see what the reaction is on that. But I think a lot of people are going to be waiting for tomorrow's economic numbers. Let's just do a quick tech feel. We're looking at the ES first. ES is trading right near resistance levels, 2035, 2040s. We're looking to see if it could, either for the bulls looking for a break above this level with the volume. I don't think we're going to have an extreme move, going into tomorrow, but it seems like the moves are being done overnight again, back to that whole routine of overnight moves and intraday nothing. So we'll see if that, we'll see what the action is on that side. So we're looking at, ES on 2035, 2040s. The support levels on the ES is at the 2020 number, and then the ideal number is that 2000 on the ES. We'll see what the action shows. The market had a nice little rally off of those 1980 support levels. It's up about 50 plus handles since those lows. So we'll see what the action today is. Oil. Oil is oil. Oil is flat this morning. Basically, it's up 9 cents at 48.75. It seems like right now, just like when we had that 55 number, it seems that 48 seems to be that little magnet. Breaks below it, goes back at it. Breaks above it, goes back to 48. Breaks below, goes back to 48. Breaks above, goes back to 48. 48 seems like it's that number. We'll see how it trades. You really are not having that move. You have to consider the strength of the U.S. dollar. It's insane where the dollar is at right now compared to the euro, compared to any other currency. You have to sit back and think to yourself, okay, oil cannot move unless the dollar gets hit. So one thing you look at is look at the U.S. dollar. Once the U.S. dollar starts to get weak, maybe that's the time to get into oil. But right now, oil is at 48.75 pre-market, up about 10 to 12 cents. Trying to base the 48 number. We'll see what happens. Keep in mind that earlier number yesterday at 46.83, in the overnight sessions, that number is still etched in people's minds as a level to watch. We'll keep a close eye on that. Next up, we'll have, the VIX. The VIX is, it's in that range. We mentioned the 20 resistance closed yesterday at, 1931. It's trying, as of now, it's trying to, stay strong in the midst of this in the midst of this 50-handle rally we had. We're watching the VIX. Yesterday really didn't get smacked around that much, so it's an interesting look. We're watching the VIX. We're watching the levels in the VIX. Our numbers are clear on the VIX. We have that 20 resistance. We got that 14, 16 support levels. We're going to keep an eye on it, keep an eye on any vicious moves, and if anything changes on our views to the upside or down, we'll make sure to pass that along. Gold, I feel like I'm a broken record on gold. 1,200 is the number. You're in that tradable range between 11.50 to 12.50. As of now, you're going to be in that range until something happens. Until a substantial move with volume to either direction, then you could see a continuation of that move. But as of now, 1,200 seems to be that magnet. It breaks above it, goes back to it. Breaks below it, goes back to that number. So we're watching that number. We're watching 12.50 to the upside, 11.50 to the downside support. U.S. dollar strength continues. It's strong. It's very strong, and it's not being mentioned a lot. Slowly, it's starting to be mentioned now, but it's not being mentioned a lot by any of the people on either the radio, the TV. No one's really talking about the strength of the U.S. dollar or the weakness of the euro. So we're going to see what happens regarding the currencies. It's something to always keep a close eye on because those markets are usually the most delicate markets with the most, influence in other surrounding markets. So it's something to keep an eye on. Watching the currencies, watching what the strength of the U.S. dollar actually can do to U.S. companies. We have earnings seasons coming up next week. We'll see if there's any repercussions regarding the U.S. dollar, and at that point we get a better feel on what the future is on these markets. George?
Thanks, Milt. And I wanted to bring up, and we've been mentioning the U.S. dollar for quite some time. And if you take a look on a 10-year chart, we have it up here. We'll bring that back up again. So if you take a look at a 10-year weekly chart, let's bring this up again. 10-week weekly chart. We can go back to 2005, and that high is 92.63. We're currently call it 0.29 away from 92.63. That's significant there, folks. This is call it a decade, near decade move here in the U.S. dollar, and certainly it surpassed the move in the U.S. dollar back in 2010. And in late 2009, early 2009, late 2008. So as we've been saying, it has an influence in just about everything in terms of macroeconomic, in terms of possible earnings in fourth quarter earnings, as multinational companies that are based in the U.S. specifically, as they prepare to issue information with respect to fourth quarter earnings, it will have an effect. And so we're awaiting that as we monitor this particular rise in the U.S. dollars, this precipitous rise in the U.S. dollar. So we also wanted to bring up, since we're on the currency move, the E7 or the E-minis on E-Euro minis are at 1.1791, and the lows, I believe it was yesterday, was created at 1.1761. So we're way below that 120 handle. We're now in the 117 handle area, and that's something. It will be difficult to see the euro rebounding if we see a QE from the ECB. So I think that's something that traders and investors really should keep a very close eye on. And can we get to parity between the U.S. dollar and the euro? So let's switch back to the presentation here. We have up here, as Milton said, we were talking about oil. It's liking this 48 mark, if you will. These are the ETFs, ETNs that we monitor on a daily basis with respect to oil. Some of these are bearish, some of these are bullish, inverse relationship, and also two times, three times volatility. Some of these ETFs, ETNs, and really the question here is, what's the impact of oil on producers? The question is, what's the impact of the lower oil prices on CPI? Clearly, CPI will have lower, we've seen lower readings from CPI and PPI data. Remember, the less, from a producer perspective, a company spending less on energy, lower costs, right? So that's something that can be passed on along to the consumer. So that's something that we're keeping an eye on very closely, and certainly the CPI is one of the main indicators that the Fed watches rather closely, in addition to the PCE, and so we are watching that as well. Let's jump into commodities, energy, and raw materials. We have West Texas Intermediate crude lower by 8 cents now, 48.57. We can take a look at in crude, just to compare where we were earlier today. We took a little bit of it's more or less near the lows of the morning in West Texas Intermediate, so we'll continue to watch that. Gasoline lower by a penny, 2.8. I'm sorry, gasoline is, my apologies, lower by 0.0054. at 1.3318. Natural gas is lower by 0.008 at 2.863, and we've seen a continued decrease in natural gas futures. If we take a look at the daily chart, a consistent decrease since that, let's call it late November. I don't want to call it a high, but it was right around the 4.5 mark, currently at 2.863. Heating oil higher this morning by 0.0019 at 1.7018. And one anecdotal data here, folks. In the Northeast, in the northern part of the U.S., we're experiencing a rather extreme cold snap. And certainly, at the very least, at least for a few days, it's going to influence heating oil prices from a demand perspective. Gold higher by $1.20 at 1211.8. At silver lower by 0.029 at $16.51.5. Platinum higher by 30 cents at $1,221.20. We have cocoa higher by $31 at $29.43. And one of the things that we are watching, we continue to watch rather closely, excuse me, are the yields, folks. 5-year 1.499, considerable decrease in the yield than we were about a week ago. 10-year at 2.006, slight tick in yield even from the beginning of the show. Now slightly above the 2% mark. The 30-year at 2.571, well below that 3% we were earlier in the year, and about 150 basis points lower than about a year ago. Again, $92.377 at 1.1789. So let's dive into some of the specifics stocks that we're seeing being circulated around desks this morning. Let's get into on the positive side. Excuse me, folks. BIND is higher in pre-market on clinical update for BIND-014 and strategy, currently at 7.52%. BIOD at $1.97, higher this morning on earnings. CYRN at currently indicating at $2.10. Signs high-profile customer. AVEO confirmation of EU marketing authorization at $1.10, currently indicating in pre-market. We have the market opening in about 8 minutes or so. NRX, European medicines support of phase 3, higher in pre-market at $10.85. PLX, positive interim data, currently at $2.29. FOLD, additional positive data on cardiac endpoint, currently at $9.43. ELOS, higher on earnings, nothing yet in pre-market on ELOS. PSUN, Pacific Sunwear at $2.43 in pre-market, upgraded at Janney to buy. Also, let's continue some more pre-market movers this morning. RECN, Resource Connections, at $17.20, higher in pre-market. MNKD, a $50 million milestone payment, currently at $5.94. ARO, Aeropostale, currently at $2.44 on earnings. PIR, we have Pier 1 import $17.10, positive sales. GPN, Global Payments at $85.97, up on earnings, and STZ. We have Constellation Brands currently at $107.50, up by about 3.5% on earnings. On the negative side, folks, we have INFI at $14.55. Phase 2 results. PODD. Insulet Corporation, we have $41.25, lower on earnings. GWPH, GW Pharmaceuticals at $68.50. Bit of a rebound from very early morning lows. Currently at $68.50, was as low at $56.27. And GWPH reporting Sativex did not meet primary endpoint. APOL, Apollo Education Group, lower this morning at $27.70. NBG. Continued Greek weakness. This is the National Bank of Greece. Currently at $1.51. AFSI, AmTrust Financial, currently at $51.60 on public offering. Some other news that's being circulated around desks this morning is SCHN reports first quarter earnings per share 8 cents versus 9 cents, estimated revenue of $555 million versus $625 million estimated. Currently at $20.50 on Schnitzer Steel. CONN, cons, we have December sales up 11.5%, currently at $19.49. And also F, Ford, of course, boosts Q1 dividend from 0.125 to to basically 15 cents. Sorry, folks, from 12.5 cents to 50 cents per share. Let's take a look at some of the larger larger insider transactions that we're seeing this morning. We have FUND. We have a $250,000 purchase in FUND. Nothing yet in pre-market. NHF. Next point, we have a $1 million purchase. That's an NHF. Nothing yet in pre-market. Again, we're just a few minutes away from opening bell in the U.S. VVUS, Northside Capital, 10% owner purchase of 1.5 million worth of stocks. 1.5 on NROM. Noble Romans, we're not having anything indicated yet for the morning, but about a little bit more than $500,000 purchase there. VSYS, Viscount Systems, we have about a $250,000 purchase there. Nothing yet in pre-market. Again, some of the other larger ones that we're seeing, NMT, Nuveen Mass Premium. This is a fund, but rather impressive purchases here, about $3 million plus some other 1.9 million and another 132,000 purchase of the fund. So that again, wanted to bring that out. BH Biglari Holdings, 10% owner, 2.6 million shares, 2.6 million worth of shares in BH. Not indicating anything yet in pre-market. CCO, Clear Channel, we have a $20 million purchase by 10% owner here. Again, not getting anything yet in pre-market, but we are about to open. So again, rather significant purchases there. I'm going to get into some of the syndicates that is being passed around this morning. Cedar Realty Trust to sell 5 million shares of common stock. We have FPRX, 5 Prime Therapeutics, 3.41 million share spot secondary priced at 22. We'll see if that has an inflection. Typically, secondaries are a dilutive effect on the particular security, so we'll see how that translates into trading. KPTI, 3 million share secondary priced at $33. currently indicating at $31.70. OVAS files to sell 85 million in common stock at currently at $52.47. Also, Resource Capital RSO files to sell $100 million in convertible notes due to 2020. Getting an initial indication this morning at $4.88 in Resource Capital. In GEVA, 3 million shares secondary priced at $94.19, currently indicating at $105. So we'll see how that translates into trading there. MDCO files to sell $300 million in convertible notes due 2022. Currently trading now just an opening bell at $25.02. So folks, let's take a look at where we are heading into the open here as we're opening in New York. S&P futures at 2036.75, up about 17 and a quarter handles. We have West Texas Intermediate crude lower by 26 cents at $48.39. As Milton said, watching that $48 is a bit of a magnet for now. We have the 10-year at 2.001, right at that 2% level, and watching that 30-year as well at 2.568. The dollar continues strength at 92.342. Remember that level is 92.63 that we had almost 10 years ago. So that's rather important there. And the euro continuing its decline at 1.1795. So folks, as we prepare for the trading day, we wanted to wish you a great day. Thank you for listening to Unusual Activity, powered by FinancialJuice.com with George Avedon and Milton Marmonides. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day. Have good hunting.